All right, so let's talk about this Trump versus Harvard. A big time feud going on right now. It's getting crazy as hell. I guess let's talk about the legal battle.
Breaking this morning, President Trump directing federal agencies to sever any remaining ties with Harvard, essentially cutting off the Ivy League from
Oh, snap. They're probably mad as hell.
any government funding. That escalation comes ahead of a hearing set to get underway any moment over Trump's orders to ban Harvard from enrolling students from other countries. There's a lot to follow here now. Molly Line, live in Cambridge for reaction in the story as it stands now. Hello, Molly.
Good morning, Bill. This is the latest escalation. The Trump administration today is sending a letter out from the General Services Administration. This will go to agencies asking them to review their federal contracts with Harvard, the value of which is about $100 million, determining which are non-critical and therefore could be canceled, or
$100 million?
Or if they are critical, could be potentially transferred to another vendor. As you mentioned, this comes as another hearing is slated to get away any second now. This is where Harvard's effort to preserve their ability to enroll international students here at the university. This comes after the Trump administration revoked that ability, and this federal judge potentially could put all of this on hold. For now, it's on hold. Judge Allison Burroughs is a 2014 Obama appointee. She's granted Harvard's request for a temporary restraining order, providing short-term relief for thousands of the university's international students, which make up 27% of the student body. In the filed complaint, Harvard argues, with the stroke of a pen, the government has sought to erase a quarter of Harvard's student body, international students who contribute significantly to the university and its mission. Around a fifth of those international students are from China, significant numbers also hailing from neighboring Canada and from India. Here's President Trump.
Part of the problem with Harvard is that there are about 31%, almost 31% of foreigners coming to Harvard. We give them billions of dollars, which is ridiculous. It's too much because we have Americans that want to go there and to other places, and they can't go there because you have 31% foreign.
Among those currently enrolled now in limbo, the future Queen of Belgium, 23-year-old Princess Elizabeth. And Harvard students are speaking out for their international peers, speaking out against the administration's action. Listen.
So basically it's saying, they're a school, right? So it's like, okay, you could bring in whoever you want, but the federal government doesn't need to subsidize that, or doesn't need to pay for that, is what they're saying, right?
Basically, anyone I've talked to here, we've all condemned it. It doesn't really make sense, both from all we learn from international students on a daily basis, the contributions they make to our campus, but then also as a broader question of academic freedom and what it means to be in higher education in a democratic country.
Highlighting the recent protests and anti-Semitism on campus when announcing the revocation, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem referred to Harvard's ability to enroll international students as a privilege, not a right. It is the latest escalation between the administration and the Ivy League institution that is also facing cuts to federal research funding, the possible loss of tax-exempt status. And Bill, as we have been talking about these additional moves.
Man, they lose tax-exempt status. They're going to get mad as hell about that.
By the administration.
It boils down to its money.
Today, we are still waiting for Harvard's response to that latest announcement. Bill, back to you.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Molly Line, on that. More to come. Thank you, Dana.
And Jonathan Turley is a constitutional law attorney, also a Fox News contributor. Let me just read from Harvard last week, okay, saying that it is the latest act by the government in clear retaliation for Harvard exercising its First Amendment rights to reject the government's demands to control Harvard's governance, curriculum, and the ideology of its faculty and students. So this escalated quickly, Jonathan. Where do we go from here?
Right.
It is still escalating, and that's what's astonishing. I've been critical of some of these moves, but Harvard is at a disadvantage on some of these fights. There is a degree of discretion still allowed to the executive branch. Harvard is arguing that on the visa issues, this violates the Administrative Procedures Act and other requirements that the administration has to go through. The Trump administration says they refuse to turn over information required to be turned over to us, when we demanded it. That's going to create a tough legal issue, and it's going to have to be litigated. What's fascinating, Dana, is how
That is crazy as hell. Blackheart, yep, hell yeah. And make sure you guys come over the Mystery Project on YouTube. That's where all this stuff lives. So after these live streams, it's all over there. If you're on YouTube right now, hit the little thumbs up for me.
Trump has framed this, that, he's saying that, for example, they're going to take some of these grants and send them to trade schools. And you really get that the political dynamic here, which is coming into play. Harvard does not necessarily have the support of the public on this. This is a university that is hardly the paragon of tolerance. Only 3% of the Harvard faculty are Republican or conservative. Less than 9% of the students are. And that creates this little island of Harvard that suddenly feels besieged. They have some strong arguments in some of these cases, but they're not going to win on all these issues.
I wonder what you think about the fact that in many of these universities, a foreign student, when they come in, they will end up paying the full tuition, right? So this is attractive for some of these schools because they're not on scholarship and wherever they're coming. So what do you make of that whole thing, and how do that applies, whether it's to Harvard? Because I would imagine that Harvard won't be the last to be in his crosshairs.
That's right. And those foreign students are something of a meal ticket for Harvard and other universities. They pay a full ride. And so Harvard gives a great deal of scholarships to other students. Those foreign students for all universities represent something of a windfall. So Trump is hitting these universities where they're most vulnerable.
Interesting. All right. You also wrote a piece that I really loved. It's called "The Justices Must at Long Last Deal with Chronic Injunctivitis." What do you mean by that? Tell us more.
Injunctivitis. Because it's nothing but injunction after injunction after injunction.
Well, this is truly getting out of control. We're waiting any day now for a ruling of the Supreme Court on the use of national or universal injunctions. But they keep on coming down. What my article talks about is a judge in Boston who just the previous month had been reversed by the Supreme Court on the use of a temporary restraining order to enjoin the administration. Well, he's back, and this time he's enjoining them in terms of downsizing the education department. And what this really indicates is that we can't have a workable system when you have any one of these judges, 677 district court judges, that can stop the administration. And Justice Kagan, when this was being done to President Biden, was irate and said that this makes no sense at all. So we're going to have to see what the Supreme Court does, and it could not come soon enough, given the continuation of these orders.
And just a quick last question. When do you think we might start to see that? Will they wait until the end of June, or will they try to do it sooner?
I don't think so. It was very rare for them to schedule this argument. All of us are assuming that they're going to pull this trigger
because they want everything done by the end of June,
sooner than later. Certainly, they have to understand that much of this administration's policy is frozen in amber because district court judges have issued these national injunctions.
That is true. Y'all check it out. Look. That's what Trump said about it. Everyone knows that Harvard has lost its way. They hired from New York and Chicago at ridiculously high salaries and fees, two of the worst and most incompetent mayors in the history of our country to teach municipal management and government. That's crazy. Imagine going to Harvard and you're going to learn municipal management, right? So basically how to run a giant, bustling metropolitan city. And freaking Lori Lightfoot comes in. Oh, no. You'd be like,
how dare you?
How do I get a refund? That would be crazy. These two radical left fools left behind two cities that will take years to recover from their incompetence and evil. Harvard has been hiring almost all woke radical left idiots in perfect. Damn. who are only capable of teaching failure to students and so-called future leaders. Oh, man. What's Scott Jennings
I think
say?
as a political matter, if you went out and argued that to the American people right now and said, well, we're just not going to make it as a country unless we give $9 billion to Harvard that's sitting on $53 billion, you'd get your ass kicked, I imagine, in
Ooh,
a political campaign. Now, don't misunderstand. I wish Harvard would actually work something out here. I do agree that these universities are important. They do important work. But I don't agree that we need to continue to fund people who won't listen to us when we say, you have problems. I would argue that it's a national security problem that these Ivy League colleges are turning out people who fundamentally hate Western civilization. Average American.
By the way, TikTok, hit the follow button if you're new here, and come on over to YouTube, The Mystery Project on YouTube. Come subscribe because you can actually see the videos over here.
And probably looks at this and says they're sitting on a $53 billion endowment. Right. They want another $2 to $9 billion. And at the same time, they keep turning out a bunch of professors and students who appear to be schooled in one thing only: the downfall of Western civilization. Why are we financing this? Is all about has to goes right back to the issue of what these colleges allowed to happen on their campus, both in terms of admissions and in terms of the way Jewish students were treated. He also said Harvard should apologize, and I agree. They ought to apologize to these Jewish kids that got terrorized after October the 7th, and they ought to apologize to the Asian students that were discriminated against.
Harvard.
Wow. Scott Jennings.
I think as a political matter, if you went out.
Let's see. Oh, what did he say?
31%. Well, look, part of the
Oh, that's what we watched. That was in that video that we just watched. Harvard sues the Trump administration over a ban on enrolling international students. Here's all you need to know about the Trump-Harvard standoff. Oh, God. Thanks a lot. That's all we need to know right there, huh? So we can all agree this is just that Barron was rejected from Harvard, right? Was he really? Look at these people. It's crazy as hell. Absolutely insane. Well, that's all I got for now, y'all. I'll be back. Catch y'all on the next one.